Trump has gone absolutely insane in dealing with Canada. And look, you know I've been paying close attention to the US-Canada trade war that started because of Trump's tiny brain. Slight political differences between an extremely pleasant country and a president that will be remembered as history's skid mark. And that all seemed harmless enough. It was just Trump's stupid rhetoric. But as we've progressed into the depths of his second year of his second term, we have learned that we can never assume he's joking. And now it got even worse. And yes, I know, if I talk about Quebec, I'm pronouncing it that way as a call out to the Letterkenny joke. I know how to pronounce Quebec. Anyway, Friday night at the 11th hour of a trade deal with our second biggest trading partner, Trump gave a list of absolutely stupid demands. And so, Mark Carney put Toddler Trump in timeout over it. And what exactly is Trump demanding of a sovereign nation? First, the car tariff numbers both sides that had already agreed to inexplicably changed. Then, we want Canada to not sign any trade deal with anyone else without our approval. There are some deals or some rules for deals with subsidies about French language streaming content. Weird stuff that Donald Trump's raging about. And then you have the bilingual labels on appliances, electronics, instruction manuals, all of that. Donald Trump is now apparently saying the French part has to go. You know, there was a 1995 comedy about this exact thing called Canadian Bacon. Alan Alda playing a president with approval numbers in the toilet. Sound familiar? So his advisors decide, let's pick a fight with Canada. So you have John Candy driving across the border to invade, and a Canadian cop, Dan Aykroyd, pulls him over because the graffiti on the side of his truck didn't have a French translation too. And look, that is a hilarious joke. For 30 years, it was just a joke. But now, that is Donald Trump's negotiation tactic. And here is the Prime Minister of Canada responding out loud on Parliament Hill Saturday morning.
And while we believed earlier this week that we were moving towards a mutually beneficial agreement, in recent days, the United States proposed new terms that were uneconomic, unfair, and undermined the net benefits for Canada and called into question the reliability of any deal. In short, they asked too much and they offered too little. More fundamentally, the cumulative effect of U.S. demands revealed the limits of their commitment to a true economic partnership.
Saying, yeah, they asked too much and they offered too little. In other words, Mark Carney is telling Donald Trump to kiss my ass. So Carney and Canada walked away, called all of his negotiators home, and at 12:01 Saturday morning, those 50% tariffs kicked in. And they applied to somewhere between $20 and $28 billion worth of Canadian goods. Wine, dairy, cement, clothing, hockey sticks in Canada. That's like tariffing houndstooth Bibles in Alabama. So how did Canada respond? Dollar for dollar, starting September 8th, steel, dairy, appliances, farm equipment, paper, electronics, matching tariffs. And you in Canada, my viewers in Canada, you support it. And I don't blame you. 76% of Canadians polled, they said walking away was the right move. 76%. And then at 1:06 in the morning on Sunday, the orange turd rolled over after a long day at Indy car races and whatever the hell it is that he does. He grabbed his phone and posted this. Canada wants the benefits of being a state without being one. They also have charged our great farmers for many years massive amounts of tariffs, no more. It was one of 8+ posts that he fired off between 12:30 and 1:20 in the morning. AI paintings of a scowling George Washington rambling about Western civilization, and then in the middle of it, insulting the second largest trading partner that we have. So look, I've got to ask, how far does this damn thing go? If Donald Trump will torch a deal with our second biggest trading partner over the French on a toaster label, what's he going to do to Mexico? What does he do to Europe? And what does that do to our grocery bills by Thanksgiving? And frankly, When will actual Republicans decide to not be subjugated by this toddler tyrant in the White House and actually govern our effing country? I want to hear from you guys in the comments about that. But then I want to talk about this French thing, because it is a thing. And I want you to remember that this comes from the party that renamed your cafeteria fries Freedom Fries in 2003 because France wouldn't join our bullshit war with Iraq. 23 years later, and apparently Donald Trump and the Republicans are still mad at the French. They just can't find any French people, so now they're going to go after the French that's sitting on a Canadian microwave. I wonder what they'll do with a sous vide. And look, down here on the Gulf Coast, the funny part is you can't throw a damn crawfish without hitting a Thibodeau or a Boudreaux. So if you're getting rid of French, Louisiana would like a word, Mr. President. But that word will be in French, just don't burn the roux. And frankly, the word sovereignty is Latin in base, but French in origin. Perhaps that's why the President of the United States can't respect sovereignty. Mark Carney rightfully has called all of this a power play. The Premier of British Columbia was more blunt, saying accepting these terms would make Canada the economic equivalent of the 51st state. And there it is. Donald Trump, even though he's said he wants to, can't annex Canada, so now he's going to annex them through trade policy. One instruction manual and Canadian streaming show at a time. A former U.S. ambassador looked at the demand list and called it, quote, utter and total insanity, and that is the headline that's floating everywhere. Look, more than 70% of Canada's exports come here. 15%, that's a large number. 15% of our exports go to Canada. Donald Trump thinks we have the leverage here. But Gretchen Whitmer called it a tax hike on Michigan families. Susan Collins, a Republican, by the way, said higher costs and uncertainty are going to hit Maine. So the people that are getting hurt in this war on the French aren't named Jacques, they're named Dave. And they build trucks in Windsor and Detroit. And yes, while there is significant debate over it, Canada has decided not yet to use oil and gas for leverage yet. From cutting off the roughly 4 million barrels of crude oil that we import daily, to placing surcharges on power to places like Minnesota, Michigan, and New York are also on the table. But frankly, we can't expect Donald Trump to care about those blue states if they have to suffer the consequences of his actions, as we've seen with just about everything else. And look, the plain and simple matter here is that none of this is necessary in the first place. Sure, I understand the need for a specific tariff in a specific industry for a specific reason in a targeted situation. But the way Donald Trump is attempting to use tariffs to get foreign governments to submit to his will only hurts one group of people, Americans. We already know we're the ones that have to pay. So hit the notification bell for me, especially if you didn't hear the words French language more than twice on cable news this weekend, because they spent the whole damn day watching race cars and Trump's wig. We will keep bringing you the full demand list.